Okay. Wow, 77 people. This is popular. Okay, great stuff. So welcome everybody. Welcome to the first Backstage community meetup. I wanted to just say thank you as well to Himanshu for helping to organize this and get us up and running, and for all of the excellent effort there. For today, so what I thought we could do is jump into just do some quick, put some faces to the names for the maintainers and for the sponsors that are here in this call with us. And then what we're going to do is jump into the issue that was posted alongside in the Backstage community. Take a look at some of the upvoted items there. I believe we're going to jump into some more information about the roadmap and promoting Backstage. I think we have some people from SDA who are going to do a bit around a customer success story about their experience with Backstage. And then we'll jump further through that issue. We'll look at it together and try to cover off all the topics that you all wanted to discuss, all the questions that you had. So to kick off introductions, I'll start. My name's Lee. I'm the engineering manager for Backstage at Spotify. I work with both the teams that own the, or that have been working, the core team that's been working on Backstage open source, and the team that owns the instance of Backstage that we run at Spotify too. I've been with Spotify about 18 months, and I've been working on Backstage all the way through. And the other important thing is I'm one of our 3 sponsors for the project. So that's why I'm here. To hand it over to some of the maintainers, just to introduce themselves and put a face to their name. I did see Frederick, you were here in the list, so I'm going to pick on you first, sir. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, I am Frederick, also known as Freben. I'm a bit of an old timer at Spotify. I've been here over 9 years now, mainly building tools for others in various capacities, and now been for quite a while on this Backstage project, first internally and now on this beautiful external journey. Leaving over to Patrick.
Hello, my name's Patrick. Yep, maintainer and engineer. Been working on Backstage since I joined Spotify, and then open source for the past year. I go by Ragvip on GitHub. Can hand it over to Ben.
Yeah, I'm Ben, or Blam on Discord, Ben Jadilam on GitHub. I've been at Spotify for exactly the same amount of time as Patrick. Yeah, engineer, maintainer. I will pass to Johan next also.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Johan, or J-Holes, on GitHub. I joined the Backstage team this year, so I'm fairly new, but I'm a long-time person at Spotify. I've been at the company for 8 years.
Okay.
Who should I hand it over to?
Cool. I don't. So we have 2 more sponsors, but I don't think they were able to join. I don't know. I'm going to call out Dave or NGN if you're here. I can't see you in the list though. Nope. Nope. Okay. That's okay. That's okay. So let's jump in. So what I thought we could do for this time round, if I can figure out how to share my screen in Zoom.
So Alex, I think you'll have to add Lee as a co-host.
Aha, that's why I can't see the button. Well, Himanshu, do you have the issue open perhaps, and you could just quickly show the issue? Yep.
Yeah.
Actually, I can even share, and I'm just a guest, so I'm not.
Oh,
no, so
I don't know why I'm missing buttons. Oh, hang on, there we go. I found it.
So that was me trying just to make sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, it's
Yeah, it's just spinning for me. Unfortunately, it's not letting me do anything.
Is it the first time you have installed it? And are you
No,
on a
it's I've done it before, so I've already been through the quit and reopen, that side of things, but for some reason it's not letting me share.
So let me try to do that.
Yep.
Yeah, Lee, I think this is a you problem because it's
that would make sense. Usually is a me problem.
So am I sharing the repository?
The issue. So let's have a look at the agenda items that people added in.
Of course. So it's loaded and
fantastic. So down here, first of all, thank you to everyone for adding your ideas and topics, and for everybody voting through. I think the highest two that we had was one from Taras. How do you promote Backstage within your organization? And then from Adam, overview of the roadmap and milestones for Backstage. So, and then we're down into the customer success story just below, raised by David there. So let's start out with those. Promoting Backstage within your organization. Let's start there. So I can talk to you a little bit about the way that we've kind of promoted and worked with everybody in Spotify, but please feel free, people jump in if there are things that you're thinking or questions or ideas as we go. And then we'll jump into a little bit into the roadmap side of things. So promoting Backstage. The story for Spotify has been, it's been a journey of 4+ years now with Backstage, prior to open sourcing back in March. It's been a mixture of a couple of things that I think have made Backstage successful. So when we very first started out, we started to see kind of productivity issues coming from basically the rapid growth of Spotify at the time. Hundreds of microservices spooling up, lots of teams kind of spooling up around them to support them. And this kind of the discoverability of all of this information, all of these services and connections was getting more and more disparate. So this is where the idea of Backstage came from, of how do we help and aid that discoverability side of things while kind of empowering all of the teams with all of the services or all of the components that they have. So a couple of key things happened there. One was around the catalog and that kind of central place to discover and identify, easily show ownership and provide contact details even just to the teams that own all of these different components and services. Another was around the plugin model. So the plugin model has been really, really powerful for Spotify. Right now, inside of Spotify, just as you've met with the maintainers, and there's 3 or 4 people there, the team that own Backstage internal right now is 4 people strong. They own the core. They're responsible for kind of developing features, maintaining that core, keeping it up, and so on. But then the plugin ownership means that teams across R&D, so across our kind of technology team, division, is able to own their own services and own their own plugins. They're the best people with the information that they have. They know, for example, the team that owns the Kubernetes plugin, they know Kubernetes better than anybody else here. But at the same time, they also are able to get that advantage of being part of a bigger ecosystem in Backstage and gain those discoverability pieces. In Spotify, 85% of the code in the internal Backstage instance is not written by the core team. It's written by other people across R&D, 2,000 plus strong set of engineers and teams building and owning services. So that's been super, super powerful. The other thing, there is there is kind of a tipping point. So when we got started with Backstage, of course, there's a lot of conversation around, you know, us going to other teams saying, hey, this would be really cool if this is part of Backstage, and here's why we think that. And that obviously will get you so far. We did, of course, obviously that core team went out and helped and supported teams to build up their plugins and so on. And there is a point where there's kind of a tipping point almost, where it becomes, there's so much gravity of tooling and services and information in that central place that teams naturally started to like, why wouldn't we build this plugin, or why wouldn't we add our information into Backstage, which again multiplies that effect of it's one place to go. And then the final piece I would say is probably around kind of onboarding new engineers and bringing new people into the organization. A lot of our kind of initial, for R&D, a lot of our initial information is given and brought in through Backstage. Our training sessions are in Backstage. Creating services and all of that side of things are in Backstage. Our documentation is in Backstage. So it kind of, it almost instills some of that, like Backstage is the place to go when you want to find, discover, manage and operate on things. So yeah, that's a little bit. Obviously, at times there are a little. We do have things as we've grown. Inevitably, you will get, you know, teams that almost duplicate effort in some ways with toolings and things like that. And sometimes, yes, we like the platform mission, the platform organization that we're part of does go. We will go and kind of say, hey, we've noticed these two things. Is there any way that we can like work together on these things or combine these things into one? So that does happen a little bit, but the majority of it has really been adding value and then giving, enabling clear ownership for all of the teams that has driven that Backstage adoption within Spotify.
Thanks, Lee. Should we take another question or give this like allow anyone else to answer, like one of the maintainers, or yeah?
Can I ask a follow-up question, or I put it in the chat as well? I don't know. Like, oh right, so I now see there's also a follow-up answer in the chat. So never mind. Yeah, so like the numbers. So yeah. 4 people building on this, 2K engineers. Oh, that's super impressive.
Yep. Yeah, it really, again, I can't talk enough to that plugin model and the ownership model there. It really does enable people to take advantage of using Backstage without trying to, you know, push everything through a centralized platform team or give like the ownership there. So it's been really, really valuable for us, that one. We've got a couple of more questions in there. How does Backstage avoid the wiki problem? In most companies, everything is in the wiki, which means you often can't find the relevant information among all of the other things anymore. Good question. So there is a lot of information in Backstage, and Backstage with its plugin model does a lot of things, or is able to do a lot of things. And actually that was one of when we very first got into open source, that's one thing I found really hard to try and just explain what does Backstage do, and try and break down that message because of all of those, because of all of those sides of things. The things that we're working on to try and solve some of that stuff. So we have a squad dedicated to discoverability, as an example. They focus, I see someone's just put, to beat Confluence, make search work. Guess where they're focusing right now? They're focusing heavily on search right now. We've put effort into, internally, we have like an explore page, which is really fleshed out. So you can go in and kind of try to, and hopefully discover, like, if you're trying to work with, I don't know, some of the web platforms or some of the tooling there, you can go through Explore and see what's existing, hopefully, of all the different things. So it's been really important to focus on that those discoverability aspects. We're not perfect. Again, just touching on the Spotify example, it's not perfect, but it's so much better than, for me, it's been so much better than anywhere else that I've been beforehand. So discoverability is one. Another aspect has been usability within the platform and consistency. Making it so kind of like it's hubbed around these components or these services and those aspects, putting that as one of the central places that you go, and kind of attaching all of the things around it, the tools to support it, the documentation to give information around it, giving and providing tools for people building plugins to make them consistent, to give them a similar visual design or layout. Enables the users using it to have a much easier path through the use cases that they're trying to solve, through the things they're trying to do. So they would be the main aspects, I would say. Next one down, it's jumping. How do you keep consistent UI and experience with many other teams and contributing plugins? Yep, great question. Again, as touched on, it's really important to us. We in the core team work very, very closely with some with a design team internally, focused on like the user research and the feedback that we get, and then building that consistent, or helping us build that consistent UI and usability features. In open source, you'll see that through the storybook, so backstage.io/storybook, where there's kind of a growing component library of kind of standardized things there to help out. Again, not perfect. Even in the Spotify instance, there are things that are not consistent. So it's an ongoing thing, but they're the types of things that we try to do. The next one down from Adam, do you have any key non-engineering personas using Backstage? Product owners, scrum masters, engineering leadership, like your role, sales, marketing, etc. So absolutely. Engineering manager, I can speak from my own experience. I live and breathe on what we have internally we call our manage page, which gives me kind of insights and information into Cost Insights, which is one of my favorite plugins in the open source. And where we are in a team of say migrations, if we're migrating Python versions or other things going on like that. Product managers absolutely use it to go and discover about different services, to see where we are with things on our own services, to all kinds of different aspects. I know that finance at Spotify use it as well to look about, again, related to Cost Insights and all that side of things. Sales, marketing, I don't actually know, I'll be honest, off the top of my head, about people coming in. But short answer, yes, lots of different people across Spotify use it. It has been heavily targeted, obviously, as we got started towards owning, maintaining components or services. But more and more, there's more things there for other users, everything from tech docs to other things, to Cost Insights across the organization. And then the last question in the list I can see at the minute, do you have external developers, partners, customers using Backstage? I'm interested in using this as a basis of a developer portal for our IT department staff, as well as student developers. It's mostly for Backstage at Spotify. It's mostly internal, if not all internal focused. But I wonder if there's something that the guys from SDA can talk to, maybe when we look at their demo, that may be able to give some more insights on that side of things. And we just had one last one come in, and then we'll go on to roadmap and that side of things. Why Backstage? What are the goals of this project? I mean, the fundamental thing that we've been trying to do is improve productivity for people. Yes, a lot of the things you can do in Backstage, you can do by jumping into other tools, the command line as an engineer, or other places to get things done. But it can take a little more time. Things can be harder to discover, take longer to discover. And you can get kind of a fractured experience. So you can get more, 2 or 3 or 4 different toolings to do the same thing, and you're not quite sure where to go, and that side of it. So Backstage, it started out inventorizing and kind of supporting the ownership side of things originally, but it's grown more and more into this trying to defragment the experience for everyone using Backstage to improve the discoverability, and really trying to abstract some of the more complex things. So for example, if I looked at the Kubernetes plugin, Kubernetes is fantastic. It's a great set of tooling there. But it can be overwhelming, or it can be difficult or harder to get set up. It's a steeper learning curve. Sorry, I guess is what I'm saying. So for Backstage, the big ones really, I think, are to defragment, to improve discoverability, and overall lift the floor or raise the floor. For kind of productivity and that side of things. Cool. I don't want to be talking too much. I want to open this up for everybody. So let's take a quick look at the roadmap, and then we can jump into hear from the guys over at SDA. Himanshu, I'm going to pick on you again because for whatever reason I can't share my screen.
Please do. Yeah, it's fine. Share.
So Backstage.io docs roadmap. I was going to share.
Yep, Adam has answered.
Perfect. Thank you, Adam. Yep. So here's where you can find all the information that we have shared so far around our roadmap of the things that we're looking at and things that we're working on. Obviously, things evolve way quicker than what's on here, being such a big community effort, and it's amazing to see all of the things that are going on in the community. They all obviously fit alongside this or in this, and this will kind of evolve as time goes on. But the key things right now, under detailed roadmap right now, we're focusing on stabilization. When you go to Backstage.io, you'll see there's still some alpha labels here and there. We've been evolving the core of Backstage, and we've been purposefully wanting to do that in the open. Yep, there's one, and there's 2. So we're really focused right now on stabilizing that platform. That's where the core team is working. That's where like all of the focus is going right now. And parts of that, you've seen the stability index launch recently. There's a lot of really great stuff going on in software templates right now that's coming along, and focusing in on the catalog to stabilize out there. We then have with our discoverability team are working on search. So hopefully soon you'll get some more updates and see some things going on with search there to improve that. And then really that's the focus this quarter and probably into next quarter too. And then the next things on the list just there on future work, you'll see some more information around golden paths. That's what we at Spotify kind of define as our best practices. So we build these into documentation. We have the software templates that support them, so you can set up your services and components in the recommended way, if you will, for your organization. So you're going to see something around golden path for plugin development come out in the near term. That should be this quarter. GraphQL, we've got the startings of GraphQL there. We know that there is probably a lot more that we can do. So you'll probably hear from us on that in the future as well. And then we've got 2 things under consideration at the minute. We've had feedback from some of the potential adopters for Backstage. One, which is around kind of establishing more clearly defined patterns around inter-plugin communication, allowing that to happen. And then down at the bottom there, improved access control. That's something else that these two things we're not 100% committed to right now. They are under consideration, but they're the kind of things that we've been doing there. And then obviously we really want to, one of my own goals is to really focus on the community. This, thanks to Himanshu being the first step, but we really want to start focusing on some community initiatives, being there in the community more, and really trying to grow and develop this community together a bit more. And then I think we had
there's two questions in the chat, Lee, if you want to just address them.
Yep. Is this a good forum for feature requests, routing for ASAP, custom catalog tabs? It's confusing to have weird, oh, it's jumped around. It's confusing to have weird websites thing in there for us. So the main place with the feature request is in the GitHub repository itself. And also chatting with the team on Discord are the two main places. But again, raise an issue in Discord, we can have that discussion. It's out in the open and happy to have it. And then the second one there, I'm very interested in the component catalog. The alpha label is a bit worrying. When and how would this part be considered more stable? So with the core team, we're actually going into the catalog and its stability over the next week or two, I think it is, where we're going to be doing much more work. We're going to have, I was in beta for years. It was. We're going to have much more stuff that we can probably share on that over the coming weeks. It is our focus. We know it being in alpha is worrying some people. We really want to get it to a good place. In this quarter, we're going to have some updates on the stability and where that is. And then probably over the next weeks to months, we'll be able to share a bit more around that. But that's where we're focusing right now. I expect those alpha labels hopefully to update over the coming weeks. Long story short. I'm just worrying about syncing time into getting into integrations going and then have API changing. Yeah, so that's one of the biggest things. One of the common discussions right now is, for example, breaking changes and being super clear around when you can expect APIs and things to be stable and how to. Again, going back to the stability index as one thing that we've done recently. We're actively working on it. You're going to see a lot of stability improvements over the coming weeks. And we'll be sharing more on that as we kind of go through. Cool. Okay. So I've done enough talking. So I would love to hand over to the guys over at SDA and Fox 32.
Yep. So I didn't prepare an introduction, but yeah, Oliver, we have this terminology called friends of Backstage, people who help out Backstage with PRs, PR reviews and all. And yeah, we are incredibly thankful to all of you. So yeah, Oliver has a story to share and take it away. It's fine to skip reviewing a PR. Like you can do that later.
Yep, now you can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because the Zoom interface went away the moment I shared the screen. Okay, yeah, I'm Oliver. I'm from the SDA-SE, and I want to talk a little bit about how we are using and adopting Backstage at the SDA-SE and what experience we made. Maybe just as a small background, what we are doing and what like our context is and what the solution is that we want with Backstage. We are an IT company that is working with, we're in the insurance business with other big insurance companies in Germany to build up an ecosystem where you can share services between the companies that are more like the essential stuff than the differentiating stuff like the boring stuff that a lot of companies need. And we are probably quite small compared to most other adopters of Backstage, but we have like many teams in the insurance companies that we work together with. And there's also the big issues that we have, like we need to know, well, not only we, but everyone in the ecosystem needs to know what services are available in terms like of documentation, the data models, APIs. Maybe sometimes it's just enough to know that there is something, like who is the owner, like a contact person. And right now it's mainly a manual process, like we have to keep our eyes and ears open and see what is evolving in the ecosystem and then bring the right people together. But it would be easier if it's like a catalog, like a service catalog where you can see which stuff is available. And we know that already for a long time. And last year we tried to do a tool evaluation, what is available on the market, which we can use. And yeah, we looked in existing tools, we looked into building it on our own. And we also looked into something that just popped up. It's Backstage. This came like in the time where we were evaluating it. And yeah, it was very promising. In the summer, we started with a part-time team that was setting up Backstage instance. And as we wanted to share APIs, we built an API docs plugin, a Sonar Cloud plugin, Fossa plugin, user import from Microsoft, Defect Dojo, all this stuff like to integrate our CI/CD environment and all development tools that we use internally into Backstage and bring everything together. In December, we started with a dedicated team. Like now we have a full-time team that is working on our Backstage instance and also contributing to the open source Backstage. We wrote like user documentation for our end users and also went in production, and it went quite well. I will tell a little bit about it later. And in 2021, we started with some kind of user research to get a little bit more insight on what our users, the developers, but also like marketing and product management like needs. And worked on a security champions plugin. I will show that later. We worked on system and domains, introduced it like to have the ability to structure the components into systems and also put them into bigger domains to make it easier to see the ecosystem. And we are now at a point, I think, where like 75% of our assets in the ecosystem, or our assets in the ecosystem, are integrated, which I think is quite good. So the future, it's like we want to have like more a public instance that we can share with others, and that's the topic where we plan to work on, like that we can share entities with other instances, and then stuff like further develop our instance, integrate tech docs, which is quite promising. I can recommend the look, and also like having a team homepage where everything comes together. So it went quite well, but we had a lot of challenges that we needed to solve. And I think it picked up here something that was already told before is like, we were quite an early adopter. So we couldn't expect like that everything works, that everything continued to work as it was, like breaking changes, like bugs, like unfinished stuff and stuff like that. And we also noticed that in the end, with a goal like showing APIs, Backstage didn't support our needs. One idea would be to just wait and see how it evolves along in half a year. But we had a team that was quite passionate in open source development, so we went with contributing, and that way we could make it the way we needed, like the API docs plugin and stuff like that. And it's also something that I would suggest other community members to contribute. And I think contributions doesn't have to be code. It can also be ideas, or suggestions for solutions and code like that. And maybe also code. So another issue that we had was like having a part-time team that is doing a lot of stuff, and that was hard at the beginning, and the results that we had helped us to show that this Backstage is the right way, and that helped us to build up a dedicated team, even with the limited resources of our company, and that was quite important. And I think the biggest issue that we have, and which we also think Backstage is the best solution for, is filling the catalog. Like, we need the catalog that is filled, and teams don't have any great motivation filling it on its own. So if it's just a catalog where you can see stuff, it's not something that teams will want to share or want to fill on their own. And that's where I think Backstage is great, because Backstage brings so much more value by integrating all the stuff, like giving the teams a way to see an overview of the problems and stuff they have to do. And that way we came to a state where if Backstage is attractive, we are able to fill the catalog. Now a little bit of user feedback we got, but also user feedback we observed. Like, I think the central point that we discovered is every team's different. So we have teams that started adopting very fast. We wrote our documentation, published it internally, and they started working on it even before we announced it, which was great. We have other teams that are very interested in describing their stuff very detailed, like where system and domains are very important, but also where like stuff like optional dependencies maybe are things that we should introduce in the future, and that's something that we should look into to make them happy. We have a team that is working with Bitrise, and they asked us if we can integrate it together, and so we worked on a plugin with them. And I think that's already this kind of effect that also Spotify has, where every team in the organization can contribute plugins. There are teams that are just integrating the content, and some teams show no interest. And in that case, it's just a small group, but we think that is a case where we have to focus on, like, what are the problems that these teams had, how we can resolve them, and how can we get them to work with Backstage, maybe by adding the right plugins for their problems. And that's where we try to work with like customer research to see what they need. Now I would share maybe like some screenshots of our instance. Mostly we have like the common plugins in use that are also open source, like the Links plugin that was just recently introduced by Andre Tower, I think. Oh, no, I think so. Jenkins, but we also have like custom plugins, like a summary plugin, which just shows some kind of management summary. On the quality tab, we also have, besides the Sonar Cloud plugin and the Fossa plugin, some kind of security findings plugin, where you can see like the vulnerabilities. And right now that is using Defect Ocean is closed source, but it's maybe something that we can contribute in the future. And then the latest thing that we introduced was the Security Champions plugin. It's like having badges for taking part on security trainings, and the team can then show that they take part. Normally we have like hats with pins on it, but it's not something that really works out in the Corona times where everyone is working at home. So now we have this virtual hat where the teams can see their badges.
Let's see your hat, Oliver.
Right now it's not open source, but it's something that's probably interesting for others. So we can consider that. Yeah, that was just like a short introduction what we are doing and what experience we made. And if you have questions, ask them. I have to search the chat.
This was really good. Like I love how you highlighted the challenges, and you mentioned that, yeah, you can contribute not just with code, but also with ideas. And I mean, personally, I think Backstage community is great in terms of contributing ideas. Yeah, just like asking the right questions like gives us what we should prioritize. So thanks for like giving it a shout out.
Yep. Hope
Yeah,
to see
fantastic.
some inspiration from you other adapters in the future. Would be cool to hear what stuff you have.
Sorry, I know I'm kind of like jumping in between, but yeah, just wanted to share also some of our experience adopting Spotify. Sorry, Backstage. So I'm Govind and I'm from Zalando. So I'm part of the developer console team, which handles the developer related tools, the developer tooling for my company. So, and the long story short is like we're planning a public release for all of the engineers in our company next month, which is built on top of Backstage, and it is super exciting. We roughly have about 1,500 engineers. I think 1,500 to 2,000 engineers roughly. And slowly we're also expanding to other families of engineers. So it's not just engineers, but also data scientists and other roles that are related to engineering. So, and it's the same thing. It's we already, and for our context, we already had existing tools for, so we had already had existing platforms before. So Zalando had this framework called Mosaic, which we use for developing our micro front-end applications and putting them together. And one of the things we noticed was it was quite complicated for other teams to bootstrap and then develop their micro front-ends, and especially integrating them, sending messages between plugins was really complicated. And when we adopted Backstage, when we tried out Backstage first, it was super easy for us to allow other teams, or at least for us to implement other micro front-ends as plugins and be able to share. For me, the idea of like having interfaces and then plugins, you know, referring the interfaces when they want to make communicate, and then you have the dependency injection of the actual implementations which provide the data was super helpful, because now I can just, each plugin can just say, I have a dependency on this plugin or interface, and then they can share data and messages together. And also on the backend, so the service catalog also is one of the problems that we had, or was that we already had existing systems which were taking care of a lot of the responsibilities. For example, we had our own application registries, we had our own permission roles and other things. And when we started out, I had to spend quite a lot of time getting the authentication setup working with our existing authentication mechanisms, because we had some old OAuth version which wasn't really well. So there was like a lot of glue that we had to put together to get them all working together. But I think it's come off really well. And the moment we showed off all the ability to interconnect, for example, from application, you can find out which team owns the applications. And from the teams, you can find out who are the developers in this team, and you get to know that their names and stuff. You can reach out directly. And then we have a support page. So you know, for example, if you have support regarding like, who do I contact for this piece of infrastructure, all that information is directly available, and it's brilliant. I mean, it solves so many problems that we have. And we also notice that, or at least we see the potential for even replacing tools that are related to people management. For example, like finding out people's profiles and understanding what is the organization, org charts and other things. So it's exciting. So we are kind of like integrating all of this together. So, and it's coming together pretty well. I wish I had made a presentation for this, but yeah, it's still not released yet. So, but the thing is like, for the next step that I'm trying to do is like, we would have to do some more work on the service catalog. I mean, it's right now we're just like trying to build all the relationships and bring all the items together. And one of the challenges so far is we cannot switch completely to Backstage yet, because we still have existing systems running and then dependencies of other applications on the existing systems. So we have to have like a step-by-step approach. The first idea is like, for the new flows, kind of like move them onto Backstage, and then for the existing flows, slowly deprecate them and move them towards Backstage. And it's a lot of coordination and you know, like negotiating with other teams and other things. But the idea is like, once we show people the power of like interconnecting everything to Backstage, teams would be more inclined to move towards Backstage. For example, at least with UIs, now teams don't have to write their own UIs from scratch. They can just contribute a plugin and it just works. There's a way for you to host it, track it, deploy it.
Yeah, thanks, Govind, for, I think you did a demo there, but yeah, we can all feel your excitement, and this is lovely. Yeah, feel free to ask any question to either Oliver or Govind, or otherwise we can just take other questions from the issue quickly. And chat as well.
Hey, Oliver, if you don't mind, just a question. When I was talking with some of my teams about trying to, we basically have a proof of concept with my organization, and one of the concerns was we don't do a lot of React. In fact, we do zero React. We have some JavaScript developers, but from like SDA's perspective, yours with Phillips and maybe Govind, and I mean, obviously in Spotify there's a lot of React, but did you do a lot of React? Do you have a lot of experience with that from other projects, or was that sort of new to you and just something you're picking up?
We are Angular experts, so I would say no. But I worked with React before, and I think it's already so much time ago that a lot of things have changed. But it was quite easy to come in. It was cool. I think the biggest issue with React is like putting everything together, and I have to say, you made it really well, and it's quite easy to work with it. Really cool. Thanks to the Backstage team for that.
For us, I think it's 2 steps. So I'm formerly a Java, Go, a little bit of Go, but mostly Clojure programmer. And then I had to switch over to Node.js, and I'm mostly a backend developer. For the front end, we had people who were already using JavaScript, and all of our tools were based on React. It wasn't a problem, but the challenge was like switching over to TypeScript and using React with TypeScript. That was what we had to learn, because it was a completely different way of thinking about how to write your applications. And I think TypeScript is a big bonus, a huge bonus, because the moment your code base goes beyond a few thousand lines of code, especially with a dynamic language like JavaScript, and I remember having the same problem in Clojure as well, is that it's really hard for you to remember what was the data interfaces and what is the parameters that you expect. So when you have like types, it just makes things more explicit, and it's much more scalable in terms of adding more people. Even if I add another, say 10, 20 developers to the team who's building this, it can scale. So I think, yeah, so we had to also look for developers with React and TypeScript experience, and it's hard to find people with TypeScript experience. But that said, so for us, that was the challenge, like finding people with good TypeScript knowledge.
Cool. Let's, Himanshu, if you would do the honors again, and maybe we've got about 10 minutes to go. There's at least one question on the issue that I've seen that I think might be a good one for the maintainers while they're here. But
let me share the screen again.
Yeah,
with the issue.
Yeah, if you would. Sorry, I'm still, you wouldn't think I work in technology.
Which, so many screens, I think it's this one. Is it?
Fantastic. Okay, cool. So thank you to Oliver and everyone there for really good discussions and demos. There is if you scroll down a little bit, sorry, Himanshu. So I hope we've kind of touched on this one from David here. It would be cool to hear a customer success story. So thank you, Oliver, and everybody there. And this next one here, just relating back to Backstage adoption. Given that the project's under rapid development, our main fear is that catching up is going to be challenging and time consuming. Stability index is super helpful, but beyond that, there is no guidance how to adopt Backstage best. And then I'm going to throw this to the maintainers. There's these 3 questions here. Do you strongly recommend creating a standalone over cloning the repo? So let's start with that one. And over to any of the maintainers.
can hop in and say yes. We strongly recommend creating a standalone using the Create App CLI to create a separate project.
So I made a PR quite recently to the docs. I'm not sure if it's merged or not yet, because I read the docs over the weekend and realized it's a little bit fuzzy, a little bit muddy what to do, where to go. So I tried to simplify this. Like, I'd suggest that if you want to contribute plugins back to Backstage or contribute back to the core, then a fork is best. But if you want to just bring up a standalone app and run things in your own organization, then you should definitely use Create App to do that. Yeah, I think like that is going to be like the main way to do things and to limit the pain that you're going to have in upgrading from a fork to just npm packages, really. So npm packages are so much easier to do upgrades for, because you choose when you do the upgrades, right? Like, rather than when you pull from master, then you've got suddenly every change that's latest on the bleeding edge, and it's kind of a pain. So to couple yourself to npm modules and you pick and choose which packages you want to update and things like that is much easier. Who wants to take the how to disable plugins?
Okay.
Or
I was just wanted to give a shout out to the Backstage CLI command that you can use to upgrade all the packages, and it just spits out if any package received a breaking change and throws you to their change log so that you can easily upgrade. Yeah.
There's an entry in the FAQ kind of covering that as well.
Yep.
To have a permanent reference.
Yep, it's this one. How do I keep my Backstage app up to date? Cool. And if you think this should be somewhere else in the docs, please create a PR. We accept all PRs. Let's take on this one. A guide on how to disable plugins best, like Cost Insights or Tech Radar.
So I'm not sure if this is actually shipped with Create App. I don't think it is, or is it? I'm not sure. I can't remember. I need to go check. But if it's shipped with Create App, it's just in the app, the main app, really. You can remove it from there, I think, if I'm right.
I guess tangentially to that, the CLI I think has remove plugin. We only use that if you're testing a plugin, is that right? Or like testing creating one?
Yeah, remove plugin actually removes it from the repo. So if it's a plugin that exists in your plugin folder. Yeah, indeed, there could be an uninstalled plugin, but yeah.
I think this happened because you're on the clone of the repo. So if you create a standalone app, then I don't think you will get all these plugins, and you can easily
you do
pick.
You get some of them, I think. There's one comment just popped up in the chat, which is remove npm packages and remove them from the sidebar. I guess one thing is probably an easy way is remove the npm package and run TypeScript and see what breaks. It's probably a good first step. But yeah, we could probably make this a little bit more intuitive, I think.
Cool. Okay. Cool. Maybe we've got time for one more in here, and then a quick check-in in the room live. We've got about 5 minutes to go. But what are the next ones down there, Himanshu, that you can see?
So I think for Golden Path, Gary answered that there's a great blog post about that, how Golden Paths have impacted Spotify. So which answers this question, actually.
Okay. Okay.
What are the typical challenges you faced when Backstage was first launched in Spotify, and how did this grow to be the place people visit?
Yeah. So I think the biggest challenge, as kind of alluded to at the top, was adoption. That question of why should we put for other teams in the organization, why should we put our tooling into Backstage, or our time into Backstage? And there was a little bit of supporting teams building things out and putting in there to add value, but really it was all about kind of finding that first real piece of value add. that really benefited the rest of the people, the rest of the teams, and kind of build from there. And that was a mixture of supporting other teams in building stuff out. It was you know, communicating and talking about Backstage and kind of highlighting some of these use cases, some of these problem areas that were being supported or solved. And then it grew from there. Yeah.
And maybe I can
okay.
add slightly, mentioning that, of course, it's a little bit special at Spotify since it started there, right? So there were several iterations of what eventually became Backstage. Originally, it was a very limited little web front that a single infra team made for their little server DB or whatever it was called, something that predated the current catalog. And then stuff got added to that, and it grew organically, essentially. So we were at a special place where yeah, adoption happened, you know, from the bottom up in that sense, and infra teams were eagerly adding stuff to it bit by bit, and eventually that started to yeah, people saw the benefit of you know, hey, here's a finished development environment. Instead of making our own little islands of functionality, you know, I'm an infra team, I don't want to manage a web page as well as all of these cool services that I'm building. So it was way easier and benefited everyone if they could add a little plugin in here, and it like, oh, it just works, right? Oh, and it's integrated with everything. Oh, and there's a design language and so on. So yeah, for us, I think our journey might be slightly different than others, but that's sort of how it grew from us, I think.
Cool. Okay, we're a couple of minutes left in this session. One thing I forgot to mention up at the top, I apologize, jumping in there. You may have seen a notification in, I think it was last Friday, that we're going to be adding a DCO to the project, a Developer Certificate of Origin. There's a little there's a PR there with some information around what that actually means. There'll be a short terms in the stored in the repository, the DCO itself. And what that means for people wanting to contribute, for you guys to contribute into the project, it means as you go to commit, you add a -s, I think it is, command. You tweak the commit command slightly, just adding a parameter to it. And that adds a signed by your name and your email address to every commit. The reason we do that, or the reason that we're doing that, it's what's expected of CNCF projects, to go with a developer certificate of origin or there's a CLA, another like a licensing agreement. That's going to be coming in. You can see the PR in the repository right now. It's going to be going live on the 1st of March. So I want to give enough heads up and time so everyone knows that that's coming. That's one piece of information. And then the last thing is just to say thank you to Himanshu for helping us get this sorted, to Alex and Jeff, who are quietly in our chat right now, from the Spotify PMM team supporting us, from the marketing team there, and to the maintainers for taking the time. Oliver and is it Govin? Govin, yeah. Yep, and thank you for sharing there and doing that presentation, Oliver, and everything. This is going to come back. Obviously, we'll be back in a month's time. You'll find the next issue in the repository soon, I think. Tomorrow. Is that right? Tomorrow? Yeah. So the next issue will be in the Backstage community repository tomorrow. Please add items in there. We'd love to hear more from the community and see what everybody's doing. And yeah.
Do leave the feedback here in the form in the chat. I'm pasting it again and again. But you can add yourself to the list of attendees that will go on GitHub. And yeah, like in future, we'll do more things like more demos, and we'll create breakout rooms so that you can interact more on a more personal level to maintainers or other community members. And this is just a start. Like it's going to be awesome, like every month, and let's see where this takes us.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you everybody for joining. Enjoy the rest of the morning, afternoon, evening where you are, and see you all in the community.